Johnny Carson. You won't believe how easily one night, or even one headline, could wipe a person off Johnny Carson's map. For 3 decades he sat behind that desk, smiling at America. But he kept a private rulebook. Cross him, threaten his stage, or embarrass the show, and you were gone. No fireworks. No public hissy fit. Just silence. And a career that suddenly had no place to land. Now, let me tell you about the 8 people who learned that the hard way. Joan Rivers. She was his star pupil. He pushed her, coached her, and handed her a stage when women had very few. So when she accepted a rival network's late-night show, leaked to the press before she could tell him, it didn't look like a business move to Johnny. It looked like betrayal. He didn't shout. He didn't throw things. He went pale, whispered that she didn't even call me, and then erased her. No clips, no mentions, no invitations. For years, she felt the loss harder than any career setback. She rebuilt herself, sure, but the wound stayed. When she finally sat in that big chair again years later, it was under a different host. The man she'd once called mentor had already closed that door forever. Wayne Newton. He was a favorite target for jokes, the Vegas image, the always young look. But when the jokes turned into insinuations about his private life, Wayne lost it. He burst into Johnny's office unannounced and threatened him. That was the one line Carson would not let anyone cross, a physical threat. Johnny didn't raise his voice. He stood up slowly, told Newton to leave, and told booking to stop calling. Wayne kept his Las Vegas stardom, but national TV promos and that Tonight Show spotlight? Gone. In Johnny's world, intimidating the host meant you weren't welcome anymore. Charles Grodin. On paper, he seemed perfect, smart, dry, quick. But Grodin's act grew into a prickly, confrontational thing that read like personal attacks on Johnny's craft. At first it was fun, a little edge. Over time he kept pushing, questioning Johnny's sincerity, and even mocking his style. The night it went too far, Carson wrapped it up, went quiet, and backstage told his producer, "We're done with that. No dramatic firing, no public feud, just an unspoken rule." Grodin wasn't invited again. Sometimes silence is the harshest sentence. Shelley Winters, a brilliant actor, but by the mid-70 seconds, she had begun showing up drunk and unpredictable. One appearance ended disastrously. She hurled her entire drink at Johnny's face on live TV. The audience gasped. The cameras cut. Johnny left the set, changed, and returned to finish like a pro. But privately, he was furious. That kind of public humiliation was intolerable. Winters was escorted out and never came back. The message was simple. Don't assault the host physically or publicly, or you'll be gone. Rich Little. He was the mimic everyone loved. For years he came on, did flawless impressions, and left the crowd smiling. Then, the off-camera version of him started to get under Johnny's skin. Rich would stay on between takes, doing impressions constantly and sucking up air in green rooms. Carson thought it showed a kind of affectation. Worse, Johnny began to suspect he was recycling material. Freshness mattered to him. So Rich's voice, that brilliant imitation, slowly vanished from the lineup. No big blow-up, no sworn enemy talk, just a quiet, "We'll pass for now." And for Rich, for now, lasted decades. Truman Capote, a literary giant whose sharp mind could charm a room, Truman also battled substance problems. One night, he stumbled onto Johnny's couch, clearly impaired. Slurred speech, rambling stories, a tangent into territory not fit for broadcast. Johnny tried to be sensitive, cut the segment short, and then confronted the situation off camera. He blamed the handlers who let Capote on air and quietly told his team, "Don't invite him. Again." For an author who relied on that big TV push to sell books, losing The Tonight Show was a real hit. Johnny wasn't punishing the man's demons, so much as protecting his audience and the show's dignity. The Smothers Brothers, Tom and Dick Smothers, they weren't just comedians, they were provocateurs. Their show took aim at the war and the powers that be, and Carolina's format sometimes included sharp political lines. Johnny wanted entertainment, not a political soapbox. When Tom used their Tonight Show appearance as a platform for an anti-war speech, Johnny bristled. He didn't ban them outright. Instead, he put them in a kind of limbo, invited only for safe segments, no politics allowed. Over time, those invites dried up. The brothers learned that on this couch, you played it light or you played it elsewhere. Morton Downey Jr., he arrived carrying a megaphone in spirit, loud, combative, and incendiary. Johnny watched a new breed of television grow while he held to the old rules of wit and civility. Downey's style was shock first, conversation second. The interview turned into an uncomfortable clash. Johnny didn't like being upstaged by volume and rage. After one tense night, he quietly stopped booking Downey. It wasn't just personal dislike. It was a statement. The Tonight Show would not legitimize spectacle that traded depth for noise. So, what's the pattern here? It wasn't about politics, or cleverness, or even talent. It was about respect, safety, and control. Johnny Carson's power came from being both loved and feared. Loved for his warmth on camera, feared for his memory, and the quiet finality of his decisions. Cross him with a headline, threaten him, humiliate him, show up wasted, or turn his living room into a political platform, and you learned very fast how absolute his boundaries were. And there's another thing to remember. He didn't always shout. He rarely staged public dramas. He used silence, omission, the slow closing of doors. For many of these stars, the real punishment wasn't a one-night scandal. It was losing the place that put you in front of millions, night after night, the place where careers were made. If you found this interesting, here's something simple. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into the backstage rules of showbiz. Want a follow-up? Tell me who you'd like to hear about next, the managers, the producers, or the guests who fought back. Johnny Carson. You won't believe what made the man who joked every night actually cry on live TV, and why he kept a tiny list of guests he truly adored. Johnny Carson had a late-night show where he talked to thousands of people over 3 decades. Yet, privately, he kept a handful of visitors that made him drop the host act and just be a real person. These were people who didn't perform for him, they connected with him. Here are the